Welcome back, y'all, to another episode of Bad and Barred. It's your girl, Avi B. And on today, I have another special guest. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but I'm really excited because we were able to connect via Instagram. And this is Attorney Heather. She is making big moves and waves in her community. And I'm excited for this conversation. We're talking about a couple different things, but one of them being just like the unconventional lawyering, like the fact that we are not the stuffy lawyers and have personalities, ideas, interests, habits, all the things, right, outside of being a lawyer, which for some people can be rare. I've talked to lawyers in this profession and it's like that's their identity. And so I was so excited
Absolutely.
to like learn about you and connect with you to hear about your story. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name's Heather Reese. I'm a personal injury attorney out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And yeah, I like to say like I'm not your dad's lawyer. Like I'm a little bit different. I'm a plus size model. I do that. I do content creation, and I have a series on Instagram where I showcase Latino-owned businesses.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I like to think honestly in today's climate, you have to have multiple streams of income because it's just like not your dad's economy. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is just that like I have to find the ways to fill my cup other ways.
Yeah.
And being just a one dimensional lawyer was just something I could never do.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about the plus size modeling piece and like how you got there, what led you to pursue that route? Because that's like, I don't think about that when I think of lawyer, right? So I'm really interested to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I was going through a divorce 2 years ago, and I was like, I'm just going to redefine myself. I'm going to go after everything that I want in life and never let anybody hold me back.
Yeah.
And I saw on Threads, because I love Threads, that a organization, Crusades of Curves, was looking for a plus size model on the East Coast. And they had made a thread about it, and it's this amazing woman, Mal, who runs it. And I like messaged her back and I was like, hey, I'm not like a formal model, but I'd love to be considered. And she was like, yeah, no, we'd love to curate new talent. Like, send me a walking video. And I remember like, I literally got up that morning. I was in the office at 6 a.m. And I said to my assistant at the time, I need you to film me walking down the hallway, like right now. She was like, what? I was like, no. I can't have her wait because she asked for it already. And I feel like modeling is a lot like the law in terms of timelines. Like people expect you to answer. And when you answer quickly, they respect it a lot more. So I sent her the video right away and she was like, you're booked. And I got to walk my first runway September of last year.
Wow.
With Crusades of Curves. And what I love about Mal is she really curates this amazing group of women who were so welcoming, so amazing. Like I had no idea what I was doing. Like I was the only one that was not a formal model. I think I didn't know how to walk. I didn't know how to pose. And they were all just so great to like help me and walk me through it. And like there was none of that like mean catty girl that like I think people sometimes like incorporate or, kind of think that models are like none of them were like that. They were just all so sweet, so nice, so willing to help me. Since that, I've gotten a few like Instagram campaigns. I've gotten a few things with different like small brands, and it's been honestly amazing. Like that changed my life. I'll be with Crusades of Curves again in June in LA, and it's been amazing. Like I'm so grateful for it, and I think I like to do it even more so as a lawyer because I think people think plus size people should kind of be hidden. And I've never subscribed to that like narration. And I think a lot of female lawyers often feel like, we're not always heard or seen. And I said, well, you're going to see me and you're going to hear me. And this is how you're going to be able to do it is you're going to see me on the runway. You're going to see me in court. You're going to talk to me on the phone. Like you're going to get enough of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And I really resonate with that last part about like, you're going to see me, you're going to hear me. And that like for you, you've created an outlet through modeling. And for me, it's this podcast, right? Like I, for the longest have had something to say. I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of feelings. I am a yapper girl. I can talk.
I love that. A good yap session.
Every Friday, I am yapping away on this podcast, and that's what it was for me. And truthfully, like when I was in law school, like I had a blog, I have had a YouTube channel, and when I first became a lawyer, I stopped doing all of that because I'm like, what if my clients find out? Like, what if they find out the real me? What if they find out that I have thoughts and opinions about things? Like, it just felt very confining to be in this profession and also have so many other interests and parts of my identity that I felt like I was hiding. And last year I was just like, why? Like, why am I hiding these parts of myself when there are other parts of me that I love, that I can tend to, that I enjoy? And so what if people find out that like I have these thoughts and opinions and I care about things passionately and deeply and I want to talk about things that matter in the world? Like, so what? I was also subscribing to this narrative that I think is fed to us by this very white male dominant profession of you have to suppress so much of who you are and stick to being in the box to be accepted. And for what? For what, right?
Yeah, I don't want to be accepted by that. I think that's the big thing that eventually you learn. Like, and I will say, like, it comes with the mindset of privilege, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know I come with a bunch of privilege that I am able to speak out. I'm able to do these things that, you know, I wouldn't be homeless if I got, you know, like let go from my job and, you know, all of these other things. So they all come with this immense amount of privilege that I know I possess, which is why I think I advocate so much for, you know, pushing the envelope where you can, if that's the space that you can be in. And I think it's important for people that can to do so, because then it makes it easier for other people who aren't in the same position to be able to do it. And I think it's about, it stems over like a huge span of all the things that we do, right? It's not just about being able to say how you feel, because that is such an elementary thing, but it's so foreign in the concept of law.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like so many people in this industry want us to be quiet and want us to like be like they were in the 1950s and 40s. And that's simply not how I'm going to be. Like, you're not going to catch me in a blazer every day. You're not going to catch me working from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. in a standard office, right? Like, and I'm not saying I don't work long hours. Like, that's the thing about personal injury, right? Is that I work, you know, my normal hours and then sporadic hours, right? If a client calls me at 8 p.m., I'm probably going to pick up just because like I'm a millennial and I'm going to answer just because I know me. Or even if I'm on vacation, like I'm going to answer. I don't have like a real hard stop in terms of like my clients. I have a hard stop in terms of like the people that employ me, right? And I think that's what I eventually learned, is that we're all entitled to have a hard stop. And I like learned that phrase from my fiance who works for like a corporation, and he will be like, I would hear them people talking and they would be like, we have a hard stop at 3:45. And I'm like, I've never in my life said I had a hard stop. Hard stop for what? I'm like, that's the craziest thing. Like, if I were to go to my boss and be like, I have a hard stop, he would be like, what? Like, the way that would be so foreign in the concept of law, like so foreign. And like, I clearly would never say I have a hard stop with my clients, but I think you are entitled to have a hard stop when it comes to your employer. Like, you are entitled to be like, all right, I can't work past this time. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I'll be available if it's an emergency, but really, what's an emergency in the field of personal injury law minus statutes and like deadlines, right? Like, we're not dealing with criminal situations. I'm not dealing with an immigration timeline. Like, in my field, it's very, like, things are spanned out. So I think that's kind of really like the way that I view it in terms of being able to push the envelope is that, you know, I do it in the way that I dress. I do it in the way that I act, the way that I present myself, because I think people want to work with you because of who you are, right? Like, because of this podcast, because of all the amazing things about you. And I like to think that's the same thing that people think about me, right? Yeah. Like, I want somebody to see me in all the other aspects of my life and then happen to remember that I'm a lawyer. Like, I will never make being a lawyer my whole identity.
I love that. I love that so much. The fact that you are multifaceted and see that as, you know, not that you're using it as a marketing tool, but see it as a marketing tool, right? Not as something that should be restricted. Now, I will be honest with y'all. If any of my clients listening, I do have a hard stop. Love y'all down.
I love that. But I know, and my
respectfully, like if it's not an emergency, like, you know, I do civil rights work. And so when I'm working with clients, the major harm has already occurred. And so I'm coming in on the back end to try to get some type of remedy through the courts. And so 9 times out of 10, it's no emergency that I can address in that moment anyways. But I did not get a hard stop until, unfortunately, like until I became a mother. Like I was very much on all the time. And then when I had this little baby, things had to shift because I don't control every aspect of my schedule, my calendar. Like he comes home from school, I have to do bath time. I have, all these things. Thankfully, I have a good partner who helps me. But realistically, like that shifted. I learned, maybe I had to learn what a hard stop was, after having my son. But, respectfully, like I totally see that the part of the still the part of you that genuinely deeply cares so much about your clients and their well-being, right? That you pick up the phone on vacation. Me, I'm not doing that.
I do. I do. And I think what's funny to me is I remember when I was younger, right? And the reason I became a lawyer is my best friend's dad, who I always call my dad, was a lawyer. And I got to see him growing up doing personal injury. And I remember being like, I can't believe he has this like a BlackBerry at the beach. Like, this is so crazy. And then we went on vacation together, like not that long ago, all of our families together. And I literally had my laptop on the beach and I was like, wait, I've literally become this man. And I'm like, but the thing about it though, for me is that he always had really amazing client reviews. And he told me from day one, from me being 14, that in the field of personal injury, it is a customer service based industry.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure these people are happy, because if they're not, there's a million personal injury attorneys around, right?
Yes.
And like, there's this philosophy that if in the first 20 minutes you don't answer your phone when somebody's calling you for personal injury matter, they're going to the next person.
That's true.
So like, I've lived my life based off that concept, right? Like I might not answer the phone for anyone else, but I'm going to answer my phone for my clients, and I have a separate phone, and like it rings differently, and I know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And it might even be as simple as me being like, hey, I can't talk right now. Can I give you a call back in an hour? Or why don't you text me? And I'll give you a call back. Like text me times that work for you. Because for me, it's like, I just think they need the acknowledgement of knowing that I'm present, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm present to see what it is. I can't answer right now. What I think I also learned is I feel like there is so much more respect for mothers in a way, but there isn't, right? Like it's like a double-edged sword, because I feel like people are like, wow, they leave because they have kids. But then I feel like me leaving to go do my things, people view it as like, oh, well, like she's going doing a personal thing. And I'm like, why does it matter if I was going to pick my kid up versus me doing my thing, right? The hard stop should be the hard stop. Regardless of what I'm doing with my personal time, regardless if I'm going to 7 influencer events, as opposed to picking my child up. Like, what makes that any different? And I mean, obviously, like being a mother is sometimes harder.
I agree.
But I mean, in terms of the eyes of your employer, like it should be that way, right? It should be that some people have hard stops, and the hard stops are regardless of what it's about.
I agree.
Like, and I remember hearing this thing about like this Gen Z thing where the person was like, I have a workout class from 7 to 8. I'm not able to answer my phone. The workday starts at 9. Like when you can talk to me then. And I remember being like, that's crazy. And now I'm like, no, I get it. Like, I get it. Like I thought that was a crazy concept, but the Gen Zs are like out here doing it right. Like you should say that, right? If you're not being paid during that time frame and that's not the time that you were hired to work, why are you working from 7 a.m. to 8? Like, why would you miss your workout class to go to that meeting? Yeah. And I might view a workout class as something that's not like detrimental, but like, that's my own opinion. That's me bringing my own opinion into the concept of what somebody values their time for. And that's wrong.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I wanted to go back to the whole valuing the time of women, like when you're a mother versus when you're not. And me and my best friend talk about this often. She's an attorney too. And she works in a big law firm. And we have noticed that together, like the women who have the children, like I have to do child pickup, I have to do this, I have to do that. Like it is understood and it is assumed that if you don't, right, your time, you should have more time to do this work. And I do not agree with that. I don't respect that opinion at all. I recently saw a mom influencer who said that all women should lie. Just lie and say you have children. Like so that you get that respect, so that you get that same level of respect. Just as soon as you go into the interview, just tell them you got kids. So that
I know. And then they're going to be like, where are your children? No, I get that because there is a huge difference in the way that they're treated.
Yeah.
In the situations that I've seen, right? Like somebody could say, I have to go I'm coming in late to pick because I have to drop my kids off at school. Right. And then I'm saying, oh, I have to come in late because, I'm meeting somebody, for coffee, and like that's the hour I'm taking for lunch in the morning, right? And it's viewed differently, right? It's viewed like, well, what is she doing? That is so important as opposed to the other person. And for me, it's like if you're allowing other people to do specific things because they have children, like what makes their time more valuable than mine?
Yeah,
I understand, and like the grand scale of being a mom, being of value, and obviously being like a full-time job in addition to you having a full-time job. But I'm like, I just don't think that employers or anyone in general should be like, your hard stop is different. Your hard stop should be the same regardless of whether you have children or not, in my mind.
Agreed 1000%. I could go down a whole other line.
And then it creates animosity between women, right? It's perpetually feeding into that animosity.
It does. And you know, I ain't gonna tell you the lie, but to the influencer who said that, I totally understood those sentiments, because I have seen it play out. I wanted to talk about something else you said. You said that you have on your, I think it was on your TikTok, where you promote Latina and Latinx businesses, and I wanted to just hear more about that and what propelled you to do that. And so can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's on Instagram.
Okay.
And it all started from Threads. Like I made a Threads last year and I said, I want to showcase it all started from a bigger philosophy, right? So the bigger philosophy is I was adopted when I was a baby from Peru. And I never really acknowledged my Latina heritage. But 2 years ago when I went through the divorce, I said, I need to find who I am and everything about me. So I really started to lean into that more, try to learn more about my culture, learn more about my everything. In doing so, I was looking around the legal community and I was like, Latina lawyers make up 2.5% of lawyers in America. That's crazy. Like that's an insane number. And then I said, I wonder where else Latinas are underrepresented, or Latinx, right? Where else are we underrepresented? And I saw that we were underrepresented in almost across the board. And I said, how is that the case? Especially when it comes to businesses, when stats have come out where Latinas have the highest purchasing power. So how is that the businesses aren't like on the forefront? And then I said, well, it's about visibility. It's not about the businesses not being there. Yeah. It's just that you're not seeing them. The same thing about Latinas and professionals, right? It's not that there aren't Latina or Latinx doctors or nurses or teachers or psychiatrists. You're just not seeing them. It's not that they're not there. They're just not in mainstream media or the first thing that you think of when you see things. So I said, what can I do as, just a regular Latina girl to try to create visibility? And I said, I'm going to start showcasing businesses. I want people to realize that you can buy from that community and you can help create generational wealth in that community. And that everyday items are sold from that. So instead of thinking of, when you think of soap, thinking of a big box brand, if what you want to do is use intentional spending, you can buy from, Naked Bar Soap, which is a Latina owned business, right? Mm-hmm. The same thing for a multitude of other household items. I was like, that's what I want to do. That's my plan. Since it started off, I think I'm now on like episode 60. I've expanded to all BIPOC businesses. Technically, people say Latina and Latinx are under BIPOC businesses or technically under that umbrella. I've expanded it to that as well because I realized that, as a whole, we need to stick together in minority spaces and be intentional with our spending, because intentional spending is a huge force, right? We've seen it. It is a thing to get your voice heard. So I've expanded into that, and I've worked with, a few Black-owned businesses now. I'm very excited about it. I think it really changed my life. Like, I never thought that any businesses would want to work with me because I'm like, wait, I'm just this random person. And I've partnered with over 70 businesses now.
Wow.
And it's been amazing. Like, they send me the product. And I think the big thing about it is, like, I'm not traditional in the way where I'm like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm like, yo, read these ingredients, make sure it doesn't break you out. I don't know if it will. Check. But I want you to know that there's this BIPOC option to get
Yeah.
this product. I'm not saying this is the best skincare. I'm not saying this is the best makeup. I don't know if it's the most pigmented. I'll show you what it looks like on me. I'll show you what the clothes look like on me.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you want to support these businesses, go support these businesses. If not, you know, it's your thing. But I just want
But
people,
now
the whole thing was about
you know
visibility.
that they exist though. Like now you
Right.
see them and now you are aware and have that option. I love that.
Yeah. It's been a journey. I've been so blessed. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I really love that you are being intentional about the spending and the branding. I did an episode a few weeks back about the importance of being intentional about where we're spending our money, and I was talking about the Target boycott and all the other boycotts that are out there, and I was talking about how I personally had challenged myself to get off of Amazon, and that one was my most challenging one.
That is
But
hard.
it is because of the convenience, you know, just being real, like having something at your fingertips and at your door in 2 days is a big deal. And so I was talking about being intentional and conscious about the money and the dollar and the power of your dollar. And so to think about you highlighting and spotlighting these smaller businesses that don't get that play is so important. And also that you're doing it in a real way. You know, you're not lying and saying, oh my God, this is the best so-and-so ever. It's more so like, no, I just want you to know that this exists. And I love that because that is one of the biggest challenges. I have owned a small business before, even like with the podcast, like fighting the algorithm as a small creator is like so nerve-wracking. It's annoying. It's so frustrating. And so like I completely see the need for what you're doing, and I'm glad that you've been able to expand it and connect with so many businesses and brands. I'm excited to see where your journey is going to take you. I know that, you know, whatever it is that you have in mind for yourself is I can imagine it going, because I've seen your work and I can see the small brands and the big brand collaborations coming your way. So again, excited to be connecting with you and talking and hearing about your journey.
Thank you.
Speaking of your journey, I want to talk about your journey to law school and what propelled you to be an attorney and what you would say or things you wish you would have known before going to law school. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, my journey to becoming an attorney, I spoke previously a little bit about it, but so my best friend's dad growing up was an attorney. He was a personal injury attorney. And I just like hated going to school. Like there were so many times where I was like, God, school sucks. So, but education is so important, so important. And instead he would be like, hey, do you want to go see me do a court case? And I was like, yeah. And it's educational. So I remember seeing him I remember going to my first arbitration in Philadelphia and seeing him and seeing the way he communicated with his clients, the way he was able to tell facts to the arbitrators, and the way that he was able to connect with them based off of just information, right? And to humanize this client's injuries, I was like, that's what I want to do. What that man is doing, I want to be able to do that, because everyone was just like in awe of it. So since then, I was like, I'm going to go to law school. And I went to his alma mater. So I went to Delaware Law School. I'm also a Delaware gal. So there's only one school in Delaware. So I went to Delaware Law. And I mean, law school was challenging. I think I had suffered from ADD, and law school is not like anything you're really ever used to. Like you're dealing with the best and brightest of the people that are from their schools.
Yeah.
And I always felt like I didn't excel scholastically. I always felt like kind of on the cusp. But what I liked about law school is there was always an opportunity to learn more. I really took advantage of professors' office hours. Mm-hmm. So I was always going to them so I could learn more, talk through cases more, because I was like, if I don't directly understand it, I want somebody to explain it to me and then have them know that at least I'm trying, right? Because a huge portion of it is also like making sure that you're trying your hardest and that you're being present in what you're trying to learn, always being teachable. I think that's a really big thing I learned about law school, is that I needed to be always teachable, and that I couldn't come in thinking I know I'm the smartest.
Yeah.
I had to be humbled, because that's what law school will do to you really quickly. So yeah, I mean, since then, I graduated. I got a job working with him right out of law school, and then I worked with him for 2 years at like a mill firm in Philadelphia, like a high pace personal injury firm. And then I came to the firm I'm at now, which is like more of a boutique plaintiff's injury firm.
Okay.
I've been here for like 3 years now, and I remember when I came here, they do zero advertising, like zero. And I remember I was like on the cusp of really wanting to push more social media, really wanted to get my face out there, build more of my brand. And I remember saying to them, like, hey, listen, I need you to be okay with like Instagram, and I need you to vet me, because if you're not, then I don't think this is it for me, because I want to go somewhere where I can be doing all these things, be on social media, leverage it to the best of my abilities. And I think that they had no idea what they agreed to. Maybe perhaps because they didn't understand social media. Because now they're always like, oh, you're always like, you're everywhere. You know, you're traveling and you're on social media. I'm like, yeah, it's all the stuff that we talked about. But yeah, no, I mean, it's been really great. I think I work with a great group of people who are all brilliant. Like my boss is 85. He might be a little bit like 1 year younger, I forget. And he is like the hardest working man I know. Like he works 10-hour days. He's in the office. He meets with every single client. And that's really the big reason I think I wanted to become a lawyer, because of people like him and like my best friend's dad, right? Where I saw the passion was so heavy, and I saw that they really cared. They did personal, like information, personal, like a personal attention to each and every client.
Yeah.
Which is different from a lot of other firms, and it's different to all attorneys. That's like I think a very old fashioned way of doing things, and not all attorneys do that now. But my dad was one of them, and then he is another one. So when I met him and saw him, I was like, oh, that's what I mean. Like,
yeah.
that's that good lawyering. Like that's that, you're caring, you're paying attention. You're like, like I could ask him any case in the entire firm, and he could tell me the facts and the injuries, like off the top of his head. And I'm like, we have so many, like, it's crazy that he'll remember them like that. And it was the same thing with my dad. I could tell him like the name of a case, and he would be like, oh, this, and this. And I'm like, dude, I can't remember what I ate for breakfast. Like, is one day am I going to be able to cite statutes like that, and then cite cases, like cite clients? Like, is that going to be a thing when does that happen? When's that turnover? Because I'm 34.
Right. Well, you said 85, so you have 50 more years.
Very true. Very true.
You got some time. You got some time to take it all in, learn it, digest it, and commit it to memory. But my God, what a journey. First of all, so cool that you had a lawyer to look up to, that you could see, right, that it was tangible and it was real for you, because a lot of people don't have that. That in itself is a privilege, as you acknowledged earlier. I didn't see any lawyers around me growing up, and so it seemed like very aspirational. And people told me that I was going to be a lawyer my whole life. I'm like, nah. Like, I went to school for psychology. I thought I was going to become a psychologist, or a counselor, not knowing that I was going to become a counselor, just in a different type, in a different form. And so that's really cool that you were able to see what it looked like, and you were able to base values based upon what you saw, and you understand the importance of being deeply client-centered because you got to see this example. And so that's an awesome part of your story that I really appreciate and value. And then you also talked about like being able to be in this space now where you still see that from people who are older. I was just talking to a friend about the older lawyers that I have recently experienced, and like what it looks like to see a shift in the change of practice from the way that our elders practice to now being a millennial and being able to incorporate some of that, what you talked about, like the social media.
Some of it.
Yeah.
Some of it, because their hours, no. The way that they worked, no. Like, that's what I always tell my boss. Like, he's so funny because I think one time it was like the early bird gets the worm, and I was like, I want a midday croissant. Like, I'm totally cool starting the day at like, 10, 9. Those are great times. Yeah. You know what isn't great? 6, 8:30. Like, give me that extra hour.
Yeah, no.
And then like I'm down to work later. You know what I mean? Like, Also, like, remote. Like, what are we doing? Like, why didn't you see me? Like,
That part.
all of these things. I think it's so stuck in a lot of the older generation's brains of like,
Yes.
to work is to see. And I just think there's so much more to that. And like, I have friends who work at firms where they have to be in 5 days a week. Usually it's like Big Law though, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, 5 days a week?
For what?
Like, for what? Like, because a lot of the times, like, that's the other thing. Like, I love coming into the office because I like the collaboration that occurs, right? And that's the big thing for me. And I get that. Like, now that I look back on some of the times where, you know, I understand what my boss is like when he's like you can't collaborate when you're at home. Well, that's just because people don't know how to use phones. You know what I mean? Because you're dealing with older people sometimes, but like younger generations, you can collaborate from home. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? Like, but there is something special about, you know, being able to go into somebody else's office. Now, again, you could use Zoom, you could Zoom it, you could FaceTime it, but there is something special about, you know, water cooler talk or being able to all eat lunch together or do those things. So I do appreciate some in office.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give that some in office work. Do I wish we could be like 70% remote? Yeah, but I get what it is. And you know, I think this new wave of attorneys is going to shake it up like they've never seen.
I agree.
And I'm just like sitting back eating popcorn. Like, you asked for how much starting off?
Absolutely.
I was too afraid to.
Me too.
And I mean, like, I remember I caused so many waves actually because at one of my first jobs, like, I asked for a raise before it was 6 months, before I would have been there for a year. I think it was like 2 months in. I asked how much somebody else made, and I was like, I want to make that.
Yeah. Ooh.
And it was like, I remember even my best friend's dad was like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, watch me do it. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to tell me no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I ended up getting a significant raise from the time that I was at that firm to the time that I left. I went up like, I don't know, way more than 10,000. I mean, it was like, and it was because I asked. And I remember a few times somebody saying to me, like, do you think you're worth this? And I said, I'm worth every single penny. Every single penny. And if you don't believe it, then that's not a place I should be at.
Yeah, I agree. Ooh.
And that's so important, right? I think that's the other big thing. Like, so you asked me what advice I would give people.
Yeah.
Know your worth and add tax always. You know what I mean? Like, this industry means us. And standing up for yourself and making sure that you're advocating because no one else is going to advocate for you.
Yeah.
Like, I worked with my friend's dad and he couldn't advocate for me, right? At the end of the day, you have to advocate for you. And also, like, stand your ground on things. There are so many times, I think, when I was first an attorney where I let things go that made me uncomfortable. Now I call people out. Now I don't care. You know what I mean? And that's like from years worth of, you know, being like, whatever. Like, there are so many conversations that happen in law, especially when you're a woman, that I think people push the balance of what's okay and not okay to say to somebody. And I think when you're first an attorney, you kind of feel like maybe I should, like, it's okay to just let it happen. Let somebody say something or do something that makes you uncomfortable. Please stand your ground on that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I had spoken up a lot sooner on a lot of things that people said, but I was uncomfortable. I was young. Now I'm 30. Now I'm 34, almost 35. And like, somebody says something I don't like, and I'm like, what? Like, you know what I mean? You're always going to deal with situations where people, opposing counsel or somebody else might be like, oh, sweetheart, you know, I've been doing this for 1,000 years. I'm like, yeah, you sound like my dad. My father. You sound like my father. And it's like, I always feel bad to act that way, right? Like, somebody says something to me like that I feel is like borderline inappropriate. I'm like, that's so weird. You're like my dad's age. My father. And they always get picked up. They're always like, what? And I'm like, yeah, no, you know, my dad, you guys are like, probably went to graduated college together. So interesting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would say those are important things. Standing up for yourself. And then also advocating for yourself financially.
Yeah.
Because you never know what you're not going to get unless you ask, you know?
Oh, that's so good. And I wish somebody would have told me that in law school. Same. Because when I came out of law school, I went to a firm, a pretty large firm, and they said, this is our salary. Like, this is the base that we pay all of our associates, and everybody gets it. And you just get a raise when you get a raise. And it was a little low in my opinion, but I was like, I've never done this before. I don't know how to ask for more. I don't know how to push back on that. I don't know if that's true, if they're just telling me that. Like, I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. This is your first time. And
Yeah.
so I asked the mentor that I had, and she was like, well, when you consider the benefits package, it's a pretty good package. Like, don't ask for more. And then I got there and I just so happened to ask a friend how much he was making. And I found out that he was making 15K more than me. We had graduated
That
together. We went to school together. But because he had the courage to ask and push back on their rule, he was making more money. But another woman, another Black woman lawyer told me, like, don't push, don't ask. They're already giving you this much, and till this day, that's one of my biggest regrets, like coming out of law school, is that like my gut told me to, but I didn't listen to my gut and learned that, this white man was making more than me and I was working just as hard.
Yeah, my mom was a woman in the computer space when women weren't in it. She was a computer scientist in like the 70s and 80s. And she had dealt with a lot of like gender kind of like pushback, right? Because she was a woman in spaces that women weren't in. And she told me since I was since I was very young, that you're going to walk into spaces like a man. You're going to walk into spaces like a man, and you're going to take what you deserve. And if people aren't going to give it to you, then you deal with it, right? But you're going to say, I want this. You're going to talk confidently. You're never going to appear to be little or less than. And she instilled that in me and my sister since we were very young, because I think it was what she was having to deal with, in those spaces. And she was the breadwinner, you know what I mean? She made significantly more than my dad. So she was very much like, this is it. This is it. Like, you have to act this way. And I think because of that, that's why I had, the gall to ask, my first job. And I also think wage transparency is so important in this field, and for women of color, specifically like minority women. Like, we have to be talking about it because we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And there are so many like anonymous sites now where you can post how much you make. And if you're afraid to say your name or afraid to do whatever, you can post how much you make just to give sight to other women. Because I think we as minority women sometimes will accept things that we think is the best thing, right? And a lot of times your family or your parents are saying, security is the main thing, right? Security in a job. Well, risk sometimes pays off.
Yeah.
And it pays off when you're willing to take the risk.
Yeah.
Now, again, that comes with privilege. That comes with, knowing that you could walk away from a job if they're not willing to give it to you, or that, they're not going to, let you go or whatever. And if they did, you'd be able to survive. But I think it's incredibly important for us as women to be open and honest and talk about wage. And for honestly, our white male counterparts to also talk about it, right? Like, don't gatekeep that. Let us know.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't hurt you to tell me so that I can advocate for myself, right? A firm is allowed it. Most firms, businesses are allowed it so much money. There's this huge concept that you eating takes food off somebody else's plate. I have never subscribed to that narration. If you're good at your job, you're going to get fed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't need to take food from somebody else. That's just not me. And I also don't need to hide what I'm eating. This is what it is. This is what I have on my plate. What do you have on your plate? And if you can't tell me what you have on your plate, that's on you. That's between you and whatever. But in my mind, being honest about it, being transparent is how we all win. And if you really are an ally, don't you want us to win? Don't you want to help us win? Right? I mean, I think that's a big thing, is that a lot of people will say they're allies, but they won't do the stuff that needs to get done. The stuff that needs to get done is you need to be honest and transparent with your wages so that other people can ask for what they need to ask for, and to see if they're being grossly taken advantage of.
Yeah, that's right. That is 1,000% correct. And I wish that I had known about the resources that you were speaking about back then. For me, if there was a piece of advice that I would give myself coming out of law school or even going into law school, in addition to the things that you said, it would be, this one's coming out of law school, is that a lot of the mistakes that you make as a lawyer are fixable. Like, you can fix things. I used to panic at the thought of making a mistake. Like, as a new lawyer, like, even now thinking about the anxiety that I would have, like, I would be like double checking. Even just sending an email used to give me anxiety because I'm like, did I spell that word right? Did I, like, just overthinking everything? And now that I've worked with older practitioners, they still make mistakes all the time, even in court. And they're like, oh, I can fix it. Oh, you do this. Or like, just simple as having a conversation to say, here's what I meant. There's a lot of, humanity in this practice, or that you can build into your practice. It is okay to make a mistake. Like, a lot of it is fixable. There are certain things like deadlines and things like that you can't necessarily fix, right? You have to meet your court deadlines. But even then, you can ask for an extension. There are things
Right.
that you can do to fix almost everything in this practice. And I really, really wish I had known that, because I could have saved myself a lot of stress and anxiety after graduation.
Yeah, I think piggybacking off of that, I think asking for help. I think so many attorneys I meet are like, fake it till you make it. I've kind of never subscribed to that narration, only because malpractice can occur.
Okay.
So I've always said, like, if I don't know it, I don't know it. And I'm telling everyone I don't know it. And I'm asking who might know it, right? I'm not going to take a risk on something that I don't know. And that's different than a lot of people. Some people are like, we're going to throw whatever on the wall, whatever stick works, whatever sticks, sticks. That's just never been me. I've always been like, hey, if I don't know this rule, I don't know how to answer this motion, I'm going to go ask my boss, or go ask one of the partners and say, or my colleagues, and say, hey, have you ever done this? What is it?
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit different than some people. Some people are like, I'll try and I'll throw it and we'll see what works. But I just have always been afraid of like committing malpractice, as we all are. And I'm like, no, listen, no one will ever say Heather said she knew something she didn't.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't know it. She's alerting the media. She's alerting the people that need to know. I don't know it.
Yeah.
Please help me so that I can learn it and I can save it in a bank and I can use it for the next time. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean I won't do research and won't try to look. Obviously, I'm going to try to look. But I also just always want to be honest about information I don't know and skills that I don't have. I think a lot of times people will oversell skills. That's just never been me either. I'm always like, this is the skills that I have. This is the information I'm aware of. This is what I've done. This is how I've done in practice. Take that for what it is, because I never want somebody to be like, she oversold herself. Yeah. And some people do. Some people are okay with that, and that's their thing. Listen, I totally support it. Oversell yourself all you want. I just am like, no, you'll never say I catfished you in terms of professionalism or information. Like,
yeah, what you get is what I told you you were gonna get.
Right.
Yeah, or undersell and overperform. That's really my theory. It's like, I'm gonna tell you this, and then I'm gonna perform a little bit higher. Yes, and then at the end you be like, oh girl, I didn't know you were gonna do all that. That's how I typically operate. If there were one more piece of advice, I think it would piggyback on what you said a little bit earlier about opening your mouth and speaking up. There are things that you're going to experience, or, I wish I would have known a little more about as a woman in this profession, as a Black woman in this profession, minority. I wish I would have known how to respond to microaggressions. Like, I never knew what to do. So I just kind of let them slide, or would laugh it off, or just not respond at all. Like, I just would go on, and then later be so angry, and then I would come home, talk about it, ruminate on it, bug my husband's head to death about all the things that I felt, when in that moment I never actually addressed them. There are things that have happened to me that I should have opened up my mouth about. I was assaulted by one of my law professors. I never told anybody that, even to this day. And so there are things that I wish that I would have opened my mouth about. There are people in power in this profession where it's like, about their reputation, you hear about them, and it's like, oh, let me not say anything because this person is so powerful, so on and so forth. But I wish that I would have opened my mouth. And it's crazy because I am a talker, I'm a yapper, I'm an advocate. But when it comes to self-advocacy, I was not that good at that. I truly wasn't. And so I wish that I would have done that sooner. And so if I could go back in time, those are things that I would tell myself, is open your mouth.
Yeah, no, and I'm so sorry that happened to you. It really is. It is a powerful tool and a much needed thing to teach girls, young women, um, and especially women of color, that you have every right to advocate for yourself. And there will always be people that are on your side. And whatever damage it creates for the person that did those things, that's on them. That's like not on you in any capacity. And I think that's also the thing that sometimes get wrapped up. Well, how could that affect their job or their business or, their marriage or their father? I don't care. I don't care. If you're going to act wrong, you're going to get called out for wrongdoing. Right. And it's like, for me, everybody is, I like to have the faith that everybody is teachable, and that, especially with microaggressions, if you call them out, if you're saying this made me uncomfortable, hopefully that person will change. And maybe no one has ever said it to them.
Yeah.
Right. Like maybe no one has ever called them out. And I'm not saying it's our job to do that. But the only reason I say it's an obligation and privilege to be able to do it is because we're making it better for the younger generation.
Yeah.
Not because we're doing it for anybody else, but like, because I don't think it's going to do anything for me to say something, but I think they'll think twice about saying it to the next person. Maybe the next new associate that comes in, they'll think twice about saying that. And maybe they didn't know. I think that's the other thing. When you go into legal spaces and you go to law school and then you get a job at a law school, people come from all around the world.
Yeah.
And all around the United States. And sometimes people haven't been taught the right information. You can have an amazing education, go to all the brightest schools, and simple, basic, inappropriate, political correct things were never taught to you. And I think that's what shocked me the most when I went into the legal community, is I was like, wait, people went to good schools. And like, how could you think that's okay to say? How could you think it's okay to act that way? And it's like, well, maybe no one ever told them. And I'm not trying to justify their behavior because it sucks and it's wrong. And microaggressions are like the key step into something becoming worse. But I also like to think that I want to give everyone grace, because I want grace in life, because it's everyone's first time living. And with that being said, I think that calling somebody else, and if somebody doesn't change their behavior, then it's a different story, right? Then you're dealing with somebody who's been brought to their attention of the wrongdoing of their behavior and continues to do it and chooses not to change. Then, like, F them. But prior to that, it's like,
they never know if you don't say something.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people are the most educated, but not the same way, completely uneducated.
Yeah, like some of these people at these big schools, not to excuse their behavior like you said, but they've never interacted, never had deep conversations with people that don't look like them. And so they don't know, they don't have those social skills, social cues, and awareness to know like, oh, that was an inappropriate thing to say. Like, for example, at my first law firm, when I, went in with my natural hair, and then shortly after I went in with my hair straightened, and they're like, oh my God, you look so much more put together. What? Or my
it's
first
a concept of hair for people.
Yeah. My very first day there, I met one of the old white lawyers. He said, "Whoa, you are articulate."
Articulate is the worst wording, and I literally talk about this with all my friends. Articulate is the worst thing because we never, ever, 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 ever use it for our white counterparts.
I've
never heard somebody be like, she's articulate.
I am a lawyer. What the hell did you think that I was? How do you think I got here?
Yeah, no, agreed. Articulate is like one of those things that makes my skin crawl, because you hear it so much. You hear it so much, and it's not just for like women of color. It's also for people that don't speak English as a first language. Right? You're like, oh, that person was so articulate. I didn't think they could speak that well, and I'm like, what do you mean?
Why?
Like, I don't understand. You thought just because somebody is bilingual, they can't speak well? Like, there's polyglots. Like, there's people that can speak like 7 languages now. You know what I mean? Like, I am just like slacking, only knowing 1 language. But some people are out here learning like 7 languages.
Yeah.
But I get that.
Yeah, deeply rooted in ignorance, and truthfully, a lot of things, in my opinion, are rooted in white supremacy, and so there's that. But if there was one piece of advice that I could give, it would be just that: to open your mouth.
Absolutely.
But I like the way that you worded it in the sense of like, if you don't, maybe they will never know. Even if it doesn't change what happened with you, right? It could potentially impact how they interact with a future associate or just someone in general, so that they can know not to say those things. Is there any last piece of advice that you would give yourself before becoming a lawyer or coming out fresh out of law school?
I just think like maintain your happiness.
Yeah, that's good.
Continue to do the things that make you happy. Fill your cup. Because
Yes.
that's why so many old attorneys have burnout because they make this their whole life. Being a
Yeah.
lawyer is your job. It might be your passion, but it can't be your only passion. You got to have
Mm-hmm.
other things. Find other ways to fill your cup and do them. Let happiness like just envelop your life in any way that you can. And that's how I like to think of it, right? Is that there are so many things to be happy for and happy about, even in like the, darkest times that, the climate that we're in right now. You got to find those happy things and just let them envelop you because if not, you'll go crazy thinking about all the negative.
Yeah, that's so good. I just posted right before we got on here together and said radical joy is my birthright. Like I am leaning into radical joy this year, no matter like the political climate, what this administration is doing, all the things, that stuff can bog me down because I'm an empath. I care deeply about people. I care about the suffering of people. Like as a civil rights lawyer, like these are the things that are core to my identity. Despite all of that, though, I am determined to lean into radical joy and to cultivate it in my house with my friends. Like, no matter where I am and who I am with, I am determined to celebrate and to be fully in my existence and in the embodiment of who I am. And so yeah, I appreciate that too. And like learning that, like you said, like you're being a lawyer is a part of your job. It does not have to be your identity, your whole identity, right? There's so many other fascinating aspects about who I am and who you are. And I just appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. This has been really enlightening. I've learned a lot about you and about the work that you do. And I just want to say congratulations for setting yourself up
Thank
for
you.
success in the way that you have. And good luck on your journey. I'm following you on the socials, and so I will be looking to see how I can continue to support your journey as well. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been truly an honor. I love everything you're doing. When I
Yeah.
saw your podcast, I was like, oh, I have to get on this. This is so exciting. I'm so grateful and so honored. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And again, thank y'all so much for joining us for another episode of Bad and Barred. Again, if you want to learn more about what's happening in the world or in the legal profession, this is your one-stop shop for that. And if you are a woman lawyer, again, I have so many dynamic women attorneys that join me for these dynamic conversations about different topics in the legal profession. So this is the place for that as well. Thank y'all. Y'all stay tuned for the next episode. All right.